David Gallop, he's the Chief Executive Officer of the National Rugby League. He's today released the final report into the Melbourne Storm salary cap investigation of 2010. Now, this report follows on the heels of the Deloitte report that was commissioned by News Limited, the Storm's owners, and this one has never been released publicly. Gallop says this report is necessary, this report today, in providing closure for those at the club. Now, at this point, I should state that I was one of the 4 Melbourne Storm independent directors who initiated legal action against the NRL and was subsequently sacked by News Limited, along with the 3 other independents. Our sacking then allowed News to cease the action against the NRL. News Limited is also a 50% shareholder of the National Rugby League and a shareholder in Fox Sports, which holds the rights to show rugby league on paid television. This latest report, compiled by the NRL salary cap auditor Ian Schubert, has no independent or objective input in its findings. It's a report that's been compiled by Ian Schubert and the NRL. Now, how the NRL can investigate itself and expect acceptance of that investigation borders on complete arrogance. Former Storm CEO Brian Waldron is named as the main instigator of the salary cap rorting, and it says that he should never be allowed to work in the NRL again. No player agent is named, they're all coded. All the players' agents are coded, and for their sins they have been referred to the Player Accreditation Committee. Now, neither of the 2 News Limited employees who were on the Melbourne Storm board are named as well. Those 2 News Limited employees were Frank Stanton, who's the News Limited football representative on the board, and Craig Watt, who was the News Limited financial representative on the board. Both Stanton and Watt remain on the board today. They were not sacked along with the other 4. They still remain today, along with another News Limited employee who was the chairman of that board. Someone who was also named in the report, along with myself, is former Chairman Rob Moodie, and he joins me in the studio now. Dr. Moodie, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Peter.
Well, it just never seems to stop, does it, really? Before we sort of talk about the actual report, can I ask, what did you have to say to the report auditor and salary cap auditor Ian Schubert when he spoke with you to complete this report, to compile this report?
Well, he obviously didn't speak with me.
So he's never spoken to you. As far as I'm aware, he's not spoken to any of the other 3 independent directors as well.
And interestingly enough, I mean, when he obviously had concerns about Storm breaching the salary cap last year, in 2009, he never came to the board at that stage either. So, you know, he simply had no communication with us whatsoever.
So he's had no communication with any members of the board or any independent members of the board. He said that he did not speak with Brian Waldron. Matt Hanson he did not speak with as well, who was the acting CEO. So there's been no input as such then, or he hasn't spoken to any of those people who were part of that board and part of the executive at that time. He's not spoken to any of those in compiling this report.
Not that I'm aware of.
It's not all that independent, is it, when you go away and provide a navel-gazing report like this where you do an investigation into yourself. When you read that executive summary today, which you are mentioned in that summary, and your governance and my governance of the board is questioned, how does it make you feel?
Oh, awful. I mean, obviously, and I will say this, every interview I have, as chairman, I take full responsibility. It happened on my watch, and I've never resigned from that. I mean, what's interesting though is that the report does accuse the board of a lack of oversight, a lack of capacity to actually uncover the salary cap breaches. Well, what about the salary cap auditor? I mean, they didn't actually find this out till the 5th year, according to us. What about the fact that the Chief Financial Officer of the Herald and Weekly Times is on the board? I mean, he's a man with great financial skills. He couldn't pick it up. We had an internal audit, we had an external audit, we had a salary cap audit every year. These things are notoriously difficult to uncover if they're deliberate, and obviously this was deliberate. So it's a question of very selective blame. I'm very happy to take the blame, but at the same time, I don't think I'm the only one to blame.
Why were the player agents not named? Everyone else that seems to be involved in this was named, including yourself, including me, including others.
I'm happy to be named, yeah.
Why were the player agents not named if the accusations have been made against them?
It seems extraordinary. I mean, that they haven't actually named them, and yet, as is sort of intimated in the report, they've obviously got a sort of an important part, I guess, in the genesis of the whole reason for salary cap breaches.
Now, David Gallop has also come out today, because that's not been a good day for the NRL as well. They've also announced today that they've fined the West Tigers $187,000 for salary cap breach. and he said the salary cap breaches this year or this last 12 months have been better than the year before. In the year before, when Melbourne Storm was involved, there was 6. This year, there's 5. So the Tigers been fined $187,000, the Titans $76,000, the Parramatta Eels $45,000, the Raiders $32,000, and the Dragons $16,000. Is that just a mockery of what the actual auditing process is of the salary cap?
Well, as far as I can see and have understood, it seems to be a remarkably arbitrary process, dependent on one person, the salary cap auditor. I mean, he's in there. He's got some, I think, good recommendations for change. One only hopes that they work, but it again seems to be less than transparent, or less than standardised, so that there's a sort of an acceptable, clear understanding of what's in the salary cap, what isn't in the salary cap, so that it's clear for the financial officers of each club. It's clear for everybody. The clearer the rules are, and the less arbitrary they are, the less they depend on one person's view, where that might change from week to week, and it can, not through any fault of the salary cap auditor at all, but it just they just need much more coherent and transparent rules. 96900
693. What's your thoughts here? How would you feel if the AFL went away and came across some salary cap rorting that's existed at the Melbourne Storm, went away and conducted its own investigation into it first of all, because it also owned the football club that was involved, and then after that, which it never released the report on that, then it goes away and does another investigation, which its salary cap auditor does. So it's basically investigating into itself. Could you ever imagine the AFL ever allowing itself to get into a position like this? 96900 693. It questions now the credibility of the game, does it not? When you read something like this today and you have a look in that report and what that report does recommend, because there's nothing in there to suggest how we're going to stop this happening in the future. And as you and I know how it was uncovered in the first place, it was uncovered in the first place when you went there and admitted that it was going on.
And that's what, I mean, I really, they're questioning my honesty, our honesty, and I mean, in fact, this is probably the quickest sort of from knowing what was going on to actually public disclosure that's ever happened in the NRL. And we were very open about what had happened, and we went there for a full and frank discussion, not for a trial and not for a hanging or a public stoning, which was what we got. And they completely trampled over all their own rules. And it's interesting, I mean, rugby league, like Aussie rules, is a game that you play with rules on the field, and they have rules actually for off the field. The NRL simply didn't follow their own rules.
They don't like adhering to those, do they? And that day on the 22nd of April when you were there last year, in your own heart, did you seriously believe you were going there that day to be part of an investigation or part of an inquiry into what had happened at Melbourne Storm? Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that we would have been penalised in the manner that we were on that day?
Not at all. I mean, not at all. I mean, certainly in comparison with what's gone on before. I mean, what is interesting now is that the report outlining what had gone on is a year after the judgment had been handed down. It seems a very odd way of carrying out justice.
Just the capabilities of the salary cap auditor, Ian Schubert. In 2006, he reports Storm was 303,000 over, 2007, 460, 2008, 957, 2009, 1,020,000, 2010, 1,039,000 on a salary cap of around $3 million or $4 million. It sounds staggering to me that you could be that sort of figures, that sort of numbers over, and the salary cap auditor
doesn't know,
cannot ascertain whether there's an issue there or not. And it went on, as you said, for 5 years.
That's why, I mean, if they're criticising, and fair enough, they can have criticise the board for not uncovering it, but in essence, if you've got people with the skill of the Chief Financial Officer of the Herald Weekly Times not being able to pick it up, then he's still on the board. I mean, is it still happening? I mean, I certainly hope it isn't, but I certainly hope it isn't happening in other clubs. I would never want this to happen to another club, but I can't imagine that the incentives to go over the salary cap aren't still there.
Just finally, is there anything that, as you've said there just now, is there anything that you can see in the future to suggest this may not occur again? You said you would hate to ever see it occur to anyone again. Is there anything that you've read in that report to suggest it won't occur again?
Well, the salary cap auditor says at the end that he's instituting more surveillance capacity. But again, this seems to be uncoverable when there's a whistleblower only.
With this
and you've got to wait for them to happen.
While this conflict exists, just finally, is an independent commission the only way forward for rugby league?
Yeah, but it has to be independent. I mean, in a sense of who appoints it, it has to be an independent. And in the sense that people are there not representing business or company interests or club interests, but they're truly representing what, I mean, for some people in Melbourne may find hard to believe is a very good game. And we're very lucky to be blessed with a terrific team like the Storm that have got people like Craig Bellamy and Frank Panisi and Cooper Cronk and Billy Slater and Cam Smith that drive this club, and they're terrific people.
All right, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, Peter.
Dr. Rob Moodie, former chairman of the Melbourne Storm. Just a quick traffic alert as well. A caller reports a multi